Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today's projects are all about giving new life to forgotten treasures. I've got some unique thrifted finds, a piece of scrap wood that's been waiting for its moment, and one of my absolute favorites, antique Ironstone milk paint. Plus, I'm using an exclusive Roycycled Treasures decoupage paper from Sonnet's April Makers box that you do not want to miss. We're going full-on vintage charm with a touch of sentiment. So grab your coffee, get cozy, let's turn these secondhand pieces into something beautiful. I'm Cindy, my husband is Chris. Welcome to CNC DIY Factory. For project 1, I'll be using this thrifted frame that measures 24 by 12. Now it did not come with a backer piece, so I had Chris cut me a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood, birch plywood, to go in the back of this. I'm also going to be using my favorite milk paint, Sweet Pickins, and I'll be using 2 scoops of the antique Ironstone to 1 scoop of the flour sack. This is going to kind of bring that Ironstone color down just a little bit. It has a little more gray in it than I like, so I want to lighten it up just a little bit. Milk paint comes in a powder form, and it is a 1-to-1 ratio to water. So if I have 3 scoops of milk paint, I'll use 3 scoops of water to mix into this. Once you've added your water, you'll want to mix this very, very well. I like to use a milk frother that I found at Hobby Lobby. I think I bought it for $3.99, and it just really incorporates the powder into the water and makes it nice and smooth with no chunks. I'm going to mix this up, set it aside for 10 minutes to thicken. Once my milk paint has set for 10 minutes and it's ready to use, I'm going to apply 2 coats of milk paint to this frame. I'm going to dry it in between coats with the heat gun, and I'm going to heat it up so that it will create a crackle and a crazing finish on this frame. Once I have the 2 coats of milk paint on there and it's dry, I will take it outside and I'll apply 2 coats of a clear spray varnish on it, or sealer on it, to seal in all of that chippy crazing. While the sealer is drying on the frame, I'm going to go ahead and paint the backer board with a white chalk paint. I'm going to put 1 coat of chalk paint on this because I will be decoupaging on this with Decopage decor tissue paper by Redesign with Prima called Haystack Hues. This decoupage decor paper has more of a fabric feel to it. It kind of feels like a dryer sheet, so it does have wrinkles, and I'm going to use my craft iron just to iron out all of those wrinkles. Then I'll trim the decoupage decor paper to size, and I'm going to use my liquid patina by DIY to decoupage this material to the backer board. The decoupage decor tissue paper is much thicker than a rice paper or a decoupage tissue paper, so I will be using quite a bit more liquid patina to decoupage this down to ensure that it goes through all of the fibers and really holds that decor paper to my backing. I'll also be using this decoupage tool wrapped in plastic wrap to smooth out any bubbles or any possible wrinkles, and also to incorporate that DIY liquid patina throughout the entire decoupage paper. So I start with a starter strip on one end, and in order to tack this down, keep it from moving. Once I have that starter strip on there, I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to apply the decoupage medium across part of the board, and then just work my way down using the decoupage tool until I have the entire piece decoupaged down to the backer board. Once the decoupage paper is completely dry, I'm going to take my finger sander and I'm going to go around the edge of the board in a downward motion at a 45-degree angle and just sand off the excess paper. So this is what the frame looks like after 2 coats of the milk paint and 2 coats of the spray sealer. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at all of that crackle and crazing. Beautiful. Milk paint should always be sealed, and you can use a variety of different sealers. I chose to use the spray sealer, but you can use a oil wax, or you can use clear wax, dark wax, whatever you like to seal it. Since this is sealed, I do want to try to bring out more of the crackle. I'm going to use the DIY clear wax, and then I'm going to go over top of that with the Howard's Chalk-Tique wax in dark to accentuate all of the crackles, the crazing, and the chippiness of this milk paint. Just look how that dark wax brings out all of the crazing and the crackling in that milk paint. And this is why I love milk paint. It's beautiful. Now it's time to bring this piece together. I'm going to use this frame tacker to secure the backer piece into the frame. And it's a very simple tool. It acts like a stapler. It just shoots a blade point into the frame to hold the backer piece down. Then I'm going to take some double-sided sticky tape and I'm going to attach it to all of the entire perimeter of the frame so I can apply some heavy-duty brown paper to the back to give it a nice finishing look. Once I have that brown craft paper adhered to the back of the frame, I'm just going to take my finger sander and go around the edge and sand off all the excess paper. I'm also going to use my misting bottle, and I'm going to mist the entire back of that craft paper to moisten it. And then I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to dry it. And this is going to make it shrink up and be really tight like a drum. Then all that's left to do is add a couple of D-rings and some 17 gauge wire for a hanging system and stamp our CNC DIY factory on the back of it, and this project is done. I absolutely love how this turned out. The milk paint and the decoupage paper, the frame, all of it, it just goes so beautifully together. But I would love to know what you think of this project. For project 2, we're going to be using a scrap piece of 1/2 inch birchwood plywood. I believe this is about a 12 by 12 inch size. I'm going to start off by staining it using the Minwax water-based stain in vintage blue. I like using the Minwax water-based stain because it blends and applies so smoothly, just a little bit of water to keep it moist, and then it dries very quickly as well. Once the stain is dried, I'm going to create a 3/8 inch border around the edge of this board. I want to add a little bit of dimension to the board, but I don't want to change the color much, so I'm going to use the Anita's metallic white paint. It's an acrylic craft paint, and I'm just going to create a different shading of around the edge of this board. And once that is dry, I'll take the painter's tape and I will cover up that border I just painted on, so that I can stencil on the center of the board without it overlapping onto the frame that I just created. I want to create a bit of a lace pattern in the center of this board, so I'll be using the Essential stencil called Fleur de Lace pattern. This is a new release from Mother's Day, their Mother's Day bundle that just came out. I'll be using the same Anita's metallic white to stencil in this lace pattern. When stenciling, there are 2 things to keep in mind. 1, you need a nice, good stenciling brush. And 2, offload your paint. You want a dry brush so that the paint does not bleed underneath of your stencil and cause some messy line. It's so satisfying to take that stencil off and see that beautiful pattern, and then take the tape off and see the whole image together. I'll be using a second stencil on this piece today. This is also from Essential Stencil and their Mother's Day release. This is called Memorial. I'm going to be doing a layered effect with this stencil. I'm going to start with the Woodwick by Fusion Mineral Paint, and I'm going to create a shadow. So I'm going to apply this Woodwick first. I'm going to take the stencil off, and then I'll reapply the stencil, but I'm going to offset it just slightly so that there's some shadow effect happening. Now, unfortunately, I chose the Master's Touch Acrylic Dark Titanium White to go over top of this Woodwick to create the shadow effect. I wish I hadn't done that. I do later go back in and I use the Fusion Mineral Paint in Ash because the titanium does not show up. I also chose not to use the hummingbird on the branch in the corner of this stencil because I'm going to actually use an IOD transfer from the Wild Bloomin' transfer sheet. I love the colors in this hummingbird, and I think it just really stands out nicely against this vintage blue and the metallic, and it just really brings a sentimental value to me for this piece. And here's our finished project after I used the Fusion Mineral Paint in Ash on that stencil to bring out those words. I love the way that this looks, the lace, the delicacy of it, and it has such a wonderful sentimental value to it. For project 3 and our final project of the day, I'll be using this thrifted window I found while Chris and I were in Wisconsin thrifting with Sandra and Sylvia. Since this is a pretty old window, it is pretty dirty, so I'm going to use some Windex and water and a blade, and I'm just going to clean up this window. I'll take it out to the shop and I'm going to sand off all of the sealant that is around the front of this window because it has a shiny sealant. I don't know what was used, but I gotta get that off and get it down to the raw wood. When I received Sonnet's Maker's Box for April, this exclusive Roycycled Treasures decoupage tissue paper called Old Ironstone Chocolate Pots was in there, and I wanted so much to add it to that video, but I just couldn't get this done in time. So I'm using this paper on this window. I'll use my water pen and go around the edges and trim up this paper so that it fits in here a little bit nicer. And then we're going to use the mirror effect and create a vintage mirror for this window. So this decoupage tissue paper is going to be applied to the back side of this window. So on the front side, I'm going to take my Sharpie, my black Sharpie marker, and I'm going to outline the edge of this decoupage tissue paper, and then I'm also going to outline the image inside of this paper. This helps to make sure that I do not overspray into that area so you can still see this decoupage tissue paper. To create the mirror effect, I'm going to take this distilled vinegar in a spray bottle. It's straight vinegar, nothing added to it, and I'm going to spray it around the perimeter of the back side of this window. Then I'll take the Rust-Oleum Mirror Effect spray and I will go over top of the vinegar around the outside edge on the back side of this window and let that dry. Once the spray paint has dried, and you'll be able to tell because it's no longer shiny, it'll have a dull finish, I'll take a lint-free shop towel and I'm going to dab off the vinegar. The vinegar will not dry for some reason, so you just dab that off until it's completely cleaned off, and then you repeat this process 2 more times to have a total of 3 layers of the Rust-Oleum Mirror Effect. After I've done all 3 layers of the mirror effect, I don't want you to be able to see through it. So I'm going to take this Rust-Oleum sandstone color, and it's a light creamy color, and I'm going to spray over top of where I just applied the mirror effect. Once I have that done and it's dry, I'm also going to take the Rust-Oleum flat black, and I'm going to go around that as well and cover up the sandstone we just put down. Once all of the spray paints are completely dry, it's time to decoupage the tissue paper to the back side of this window. I'll be using the reverse decoupage method, where you decoupage the image to the back side of the window so that when you turn the window over, you can see the front side of the image. I'm using the DIY liquid patina as my decoupage medium, and I'll be starting with a starter strip, and I'm going to apply the liquid patina across the entire surface of the window so that it has a uniform look. I'll continue to add the liquid patina in sections, working my way across the window to the very end. To help the decoupage paper pop, I'm going to take a piece of white foam board cut to the size of the window, and I'm going to use my frame tacker and secure it into this window. Now it's time to work on the frame. I'm going to apply 1 coat of the DIY Little Black Dress clay-based paint to the top and sides of the entire frame. The clay-based paint comes off the window with no problem, but I want to seal this paint with a spray sealer. So I'm going to use a piece of poster board and tape this to the front of the window. I'll make sure the painter's tape is up close to the window frame, and then I'll take this out to the shop and spray 1 coat of a clear sealer to the front and sides of the window frame. I'm going to be applying the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint to this window frame. I'm going to be using the Antique Ironstone and the Flour Sack. The Antique Ironstone color is a little gray and it's a little darker than what I want. So I'm actually going to be using 1 scoop of the Antique Ironstone and 2 scoops of the Flour Sack. Milk paint is a 1-to-1 ratio, so if you have 1 part milk paint, you need 1 part water. I have 3 scoops of milk paint. I'm going to use 3 scoops of water. Once you've added your water to your milk paint, you'll want to stir it very thoroughly. I like to use a milk frother, but you can use a craft stick or a spoon, whatever you like. And then set it to the side for 10 minutes to thicken up. Once the milk paint has had time to thicken up, I will apply 2 coats of the milk paint. The first coat will go on a little streaky. You'll be able to see through it, kind of transparent. But by the time you put your second coat on, it is going to have a beautiful coverage. That second coat really grabs onto the first coat. I like to dry the milk paint between coats using a heat gun. This causes it to dry faster, and it will create have a better chance of creating the crackling and the crazing that I'm looking for. This is after 2 coats of milk paint, and you can just watch the crackling and the crazing happen right before your eyes with the heat gun. Now with the milk paint, I want to seal this in, and I'm going to use a spray sealer. You can choose any kind of sealer that you want. You can do a brush on, you can do an oil wax, you can do wax. I'm going to use a spray sealer because I don't want any of that chippiness to come off. I want to seal that chippiness in. So I'm going to take this out to the shop, and I'm going to spray it with a coat of clear matte spray sealer. Once the spray sealer is dry, I'm going to apply a coat of the DIY clear wax, and then I'm going to follow that up with the Howard's Chalk-Tique in dark wax to bring out all of the crackles and the beauty of the milk paint. Now that the front side of the frame is finished, let's clean up that glass. I'm just going to use some Windex and a razor blade and scrape off the Sharpie that I put on there, wipe it down, and clean it up. To make sure the back side looks nice, I'm also going to apply some double-sided sticky tape around the perimeter of the back side of the window and then attach some heavy craft paper. I'm going to apply our CNC DIY factory stamp, and then I'll spritz the paper with some water to get it to relax, and then I'm going to use a heat gun to make sure it's nice and tight. Using the water on the craft paper and then using the heat gun to dry it just makes the back look so professional. And here is our old Ironstone chocolate pots mirrored effect window. What do you think of this? I am so in love with this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to let it go. Tell me what you think in the comments. And here's the final reveal of all three projects together. From simple thrifted finds and scrap wood to vintage charm and heartfelt memories. I hope this has inspired you to look at your own stash a little differently and get creative with what you've got. If you've enjoyed these transformations, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more CNC DIY Factory. And keep practicing random acts of crafting. Bye for now.